All right. So we are live, and we're live Sunday evening, a little bit of a different time than we usually are because at the start of this week, I made a commitment that I was getting back to doing the podcast 5 times a week. But my Monday schedule has switched around a little bit. So I'm kind of trying to figure out when I can jump on Mondays to do it then. But in the meantime, we're picking a day on the weekend. And today it's Sunday, and we're jumping on Sunday. So today, I want to talk to you guys about a book that I started reading. That actually Dar, the guy renting from me at my gym, if you're listening to this, I appreciate you, lent me a couple of months ago, and I haven't really gotten around to it until now. It's called Sell Like Crazy. And I'm going to talk about a piece literally right in the first chapter that really spoke to me and I think is really going to help you guys too. So we're going to get into the podcast and we're going to go in 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to another episode of the Elite Development Podcast, the #1 show for athletes looking to gain an edge on their opponents and build their dream careers in sport. I am your host, Kenny Dussault, and today we are going to talk about a book that I've been reading lately. And the book is called Sell Like Crazy, which I know right away doesn't really apply to a lot of the people that are listening to this show because a lot of you guys are athletes. You're building a career as an athlete. You're not, running a business or anything like that. So let me give you a little backstory. The reason we're talking about this book is because I just started reading it. And as I said before the broadcast started, Dar, if you're listening to this, the guy who rents from me at my gym, lent me this book a couple of months ago. I haven't really gotten around to it until now. Just been, in and out of the country a couple times, doing a whole bunch of shit, and just haven't really put priority into sitting down and reading. But I started reading it this morning. It was a business book, learn more about, learn more about sales, learn more about the business side of everything I do. And when I started reading it, one of the things right in the first chapter really spoke to me. And it said, if you're trying to build a $1 billion business, you need to think like a billionaire today. Now, the reason that spoke to me is because this is similar to a message that I talk to my athletes about all the time. If you are trying to be a UFC champion, as an example, you need to start thinking like a UFC champion today. You need to start acting like a UFC champion today. With whatever you are approaching in your life, ask yourself, how does that UFC champion version or how does that billionaire version of you approach that situation, right? So even if you're not there right now, even if you're not at that level right now, don't think about how I'll get more serious once I'm at that level, or don't think about how, I'll change how I approach that once I've gotten to this point, because you get to that point by changing how you approach certain situations. You get to that point by changing your mindset around the way you approach training, around the way you take care of your body, around your nutrition, around everything. So when those things come up, ask yourself how that version of you handles it. When you have friends asking you to go out and have a few drinks on the weekend and you've got training the next day, you today might be tempted to go. But if you are UFC champion version of you, or again, take that and put it towards whatever sport that you're competing in. But if you are at that position, if you are in that position, if you are the UFC champion version of you, you're in a training camp right now, you've got a world championship fight in 4-6 weeks, whatever it might be. What are you telling those friends that are asking you to come out and have a few drinks? You're probably telling them no. Right? So if that's who you want to be and that's the position you want to get to, start acting that way now. Start making those decisions now. Be that guy today. And when you can be that guy today or be that girl today, then you're going to put yourself in a position where you can successfully turn into that person. So that phrase, act like a billionaire, or start acting like a billionaire today, from this book, started making me think about the way that I show up in everything I do. And one of them was literally me sitting down and doing this podcast today. Because like I said before the broadcast started as well, this week, the last few weeks have been a little bit crazy. I've been in and out of the country. I haven't put the priority on doing the podcast. I've made a conscious decision that I was like, I'm going to take a little break from it. I've got all these other things going on and trying to deliver good value on top of doing all that. I'm just going to take a little bit of time away from it. And when I started doing it again this week, I told myself, I was like, man, I'm getting back to 5 a week. I'm not going to, just like do one and then see where it goes. I'm getting back to 5 a week. And the week went through. Monday, my schedule was a little bit off. I didn't get the one in on Monday. So I thought, okay, I've got to do one on the weekend. And then I woke up this morning, realized that I'd forgotten to do it on Saturday, which I had planned. And then I was starting to make excuses to myself, being like, oh, it's Sunday. I'll get 5 in this coming week. And then I asked myself, what does that billionaire version of Kenny do? Does he back off on the commitment that he made at the start of the week? Or does he set up his fucking phone and set up the podcast at almost 8 p.m. on Sunday night and make the fucking commitment that he made? And billionaire version of me does that. Not even that I'm necessarily motivated by becoming a billionaire, but the number one, the highest level version of me says I'm going to commit to doing this and gets it done. So instead of letting the excuses go and be like, oh, I'll get to it next week, I set the podcast up at almost 8 p.m. on Sunday night and I'm getting it done. So the same thing is what I want to bring to you guys. And that might seem like a silly example because, it's a podcast. Who cares? So you could just do it the next day. It's not a big deal. But the principle of it becomes the person who achieves the goals that I have as a coach is the person who sticks to the commitments that he makes. Just like the person who achieves the goals that you have as an athlete is the person who sticks to the commitments they make, right? If you say you're going to go train on Wednesday night at 6 p.m., go train on Wednesday night at 6 p.m. If you say you're going to stick to a certain number of calories in per day to make sure that your weight's staying at a certain level for the fight that you have coming up in 6 weeks, the highest level version that you can become, the highest level athlete that you are going to be, sticks to that plan because they know that, yeah, that burger or the whatever you might want to eat is going to taste good today, but the extra strain on your weight cut in 4 weeks isn't worth it. You guys understand what I'm saying? So the biggest thing that I want to reinforce with you guys, and it is going to be a short one tonight, but the biggest thing I want to reinforce with you guys through this episode is that when you make a commitment, stick to it. Think about UFC champion version of you, professional athlete version of you, multi-millionaire version of you, whatever that highest level version is, right? Whatever that I have achieved every goal that I had in my life version is. Think about that person and think about how they approach each and every situation. Even those little things that you might not think is a big deal, right? You're 4 weeks out from your fight and you cheat on the diet a little bit and you gain a little bit of extra weight. You don't feel like it's a big deal. You're like, oh yeah, I'll just, I'll get it all off tomorrow. I'll train extra hard tomorrow. But then if you put in that extra time tomorrow just to get that little bit of extra weight off, does that have an effect on your recovery? Does that have an effect on how you train the next week? If you're holding on to a little bit of extra weight, does that affect your weight cut? Like, start thinking the way that UFC champion level version of you is going to think. And that version of you is thinking, well, I can't have this burger tonight because that's going to up my weight by potentially up to this amount. If I up my weight by potentially this amount, that's going to affect this, and this in the future. So even though that would be the most delicious thing and it's all I want in my entire life right now, I have a commitment that I need to be this weight on this day, and I'm not breaking that commitment. You guys get what I'm saying? So, as always, guys, I hope you got a little bit of value out of that. I hope you got a little bit of a mindset shift. But as we wrap it up, my challenge for you is think about the last 7 days. Think about the last 7 days and ask yourself, have I been that UFC champion level version of myself? And again, I say this understanding that obviously not everyone who watches this or listens to this is an MMA fighter, but whether that's boxing, MMA, kickboxing, jiu-jitsu, whatever type of competition you might be in, or whether you're not a fighter at all and you're listening to this, which would surprise me, but if it is you, I appreciate you. Whatever goals you have for your career, think about how does the person, the version of me that has achieved all of those goals, show up in every single situation. And then think about the last 7 days. What are the things that you've done over the last 7 days that have not shown up in that way? Whether that was, like we talked about, cheating on the diet, whether that was, like I talked about for myself, not sticking to a commitment, almost not sticking to a commitment because we did get it done. But whatever those things were, be aware of them, because it's okay that you're not perfect. None of us are. But the next time that same situation comes up, the next time I make a commitment to myself that I'm going to do something and I try to make an excuse not to do it, the next time your friend presents you with, hey, come have a burger and a few beers, and you know that that's going to put you way above that calorie limit that you're supposed to be at, cutting down for your fight. The next time whatever one of those things starts coming up, ask yourself, what can I do better and how can I show up at a higher level than I did this time? And if you can be aware of those little mistakes, those little slip ups and everything that happen, then you can start to fix them. You can start to show up at a higher level. You can start to become that guy or that girl, so that, again, you can start thinking like a billionaire, thinking like the UFC champion, thinking like that person who's going to be able to achieve every goal you have set out for yourself. So guys, now that is it. That is all. I appreciate you all so much for tuning in. I hope you have a fantastic rest of your day, and I will catch you on the next episode. And you guys, we're going to stick around for a minute. I saw